is on behalf of another group on the PDMT program, which I spoke about briefly the last day, and it's on behalf of Maura, Marilyn, Goose, and other colleagues. So this is about a study of people who have graduated from the PDMT program. I think I'll start the presentation with some background around the program for those who aren't familiar with it, kind of a look at what the participants, the outfield teachers, will actually be doing, and then some responses to a survey. So it was state-funded part-time blended learning professional development program. So the participants on this upskilling program to gain mathematics teacher certification, they incurred no fee. It was part-time in the sense that they had their contracted teaching hours, so it was additional. So lectures took place in the evenings online and tutorials in person every second week, for which there were 3 tutorials per module. So we'll look at that in more detail. The program is delivered by a national consortium of 13 higher education institutions. So across the country, there are various sites for the localized sites, if you will, for the tutorials, while the lectures come mainly from the University of Limerick, so a place in Ireland, and in conjunction with another university in a place called Galway. So 6 cohorts of teachers have graduated since 2012. So that's amassing €7 million of funding from the Department of Education here, 1,078 teachers. There are 2 more cohorts currently on the program, so another 300 or so, and the funding for that was another €1 million. So graduates of the program are certified to teach mathematics at all levels of post-primary, at secondary school in Ireland. So at all levels at the advanced mathematics. So the professional development program is, like many programs as such internationally, is underpinned by this subject matter knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge comes together to give us, I suppose, this view of teacher certification. So with that being underpinning the program, it's broken down into mathematics modules, of which there are 10, and pedagogy modules, for which there are 5 workshops over the 2-year period, an action research project, and what's called a summer school, which is ongoing at the moment. So that's where my colleague Neve is at the moment, and that amasses 15 credits. So as you can see, it's heavily weighted towards the maths modules. But as I spoke about yesterday, this is, I suppose, regulated by the governing body of teachers in Ireland that insists that this is the way it must be. And to go a little bit further, the Teaching Council criteria for maths teacher certification in Ireland indicates what actual modules must be studied as part of the 60 credits. So there must be essential areas of study, so analysis, algebra, and geometry. And then there are optional areas of study. So the university has some autonomy in terms of what's from that list of what mathematics content they can provide. So to give an indication of what this looked like in practice. So typically, what would happen is for session 1 and session 2 in autumn, when they begin the program, they have calculus 1 for 8 weeks, and then they have calculus 2 for 8 weeks, and then they take the exam at the end on a Saturday in both of them. So calculus 1 in the morning, calculus 2 in the afternoon. So every second week then there is a tutorial. So let's say, for instance, they have lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3. So that's Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, where they watch those online, and then on that Thursday they go to their local site for the tutorial. So just to give you an indication of how it works. Then we have the Christmas break, and then in spring they do algebra 1 and algebra 2. Then they sit the exam in both of those. In the summer they have 1 session in probability, again running the same format, but it's just probability, and then they examine that. Autumn time we have statistics and geometry, and then the exam, and then session 8 and 9 in the springtime, calculus and history of maths. And that brings them to problem solving the following summer, and it's complete. So an intensive course, because it's mandated to be that they have to acquire teacher certification. The pedagogy components, which I talked about, 15 credits, spread over year 1 and year 2 are these compulsory workshops. And they, along with that, then to gain your credits, they have to develop teaching and learning plans. So those are more curriculum focused. They're directly aligned to the curriculum and trying to tie in with some of the maths content that's being taught simultaneously. And then across the years, the the development of their action research project. So on a topic of their choosing from their teaching. So typically, we look at this program development from the point of view of, well, we put in some subject matter knowledge, we put in some pedagogical content knowledge, and we develop teachers. But of course, it's much more complex than that. And there is, I suppose, the aspect of teacher identity that encapsulates, I suppose, effective and cognitive aspects, which go towards out-of-field mathematics teacher development. And so to capture some of the teacher identity, I suppose, changes in some respect, we look towards, for this research, professional self-understanding, in the sense that these are indicators of teacher identity on a more larger scale than would be possible with such narrative research if we want to gather data on a more wider cohort. So professional self-understanding takes into account one's cognitions and one's mental representations. It is both a product and a process, in the sense that there's ongoing sense making, and the product of this sense making then is one's professional self-understanding. So the research question I'm going to talk about here is what professional self-understandings are held by formerly out-of-field teachers of maths who have completed an upskilling program that confers in-field, or I suppose certified status. And building on the work of the boundary between fields model for Hobbes, we suggest that this PDMT could act as a support mechanism to help these teachers. While the professional self-understanding adheres to professional resources. So professional self-understanding in the context of a teacher, it acts as a teacher's interpretive framework, and it's made up of self-image, self-esteem, task perception, future perspective, and job motivation. So to operationalize all of these in the context of research, Kenrainis et al. Suggest that these are teacher identity indicators, and self-image and self-esteem can be coupled to be thought of I suppose, researched in the context of self-efficacy, while job motivation, future perspective, and task perception can all be thought of in terms of one's commitment to mathematics teaching and one's job satisfaction. So taking these three elements, self-efficacy, job satisfaction, and commitment, they were taken to be the cognitions and to capture, I suppose, cognitions and mental representations to capture some professional self-understandings of the former participants on the program. So it was a quantitative and qualitative responses to online questionnaire. The survey was emailed to graduates of the program from 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. So the survey was delivered to 796 graduates of the program, but the response rate was only at 27%, with 218 valid responses received, and not all of those responses responded to every part of the survey. So just some indication of the sample. The female proportion of respondents was 61% and male was 39%. Across the years of graduation, it was reasonably broken down. So we had 33% from 2014, 25% from 2015, 26% from 2016, 13% from 2017, and 3% didn't respond to that question. Just some other key points of note. 57% came from the 31 to 40-year-old age group, and 20% from the 41 to 50-year age group. And the majority of the respondents, 71%, had 6 to 15 years teaching experience, with 70% having 10 or less teaching mathematics. So the research instrument then, so drawing on a variety of instruments that were already in the field and validated for job satisfaction from Caprara, commitment to mathematics teaching from Meyer et al., and then self-efficacy regard to teaching mathematics from Shannon, Moore, and High. Also an element, there were 10 items on the survey that asked them about their preparedness to teach curriculum-aligned content. And those questions were developed by the research team. So in terms of job satisfaction, by and large, we see that a vast proportion of the respondents were strongly agree that they were satisfied with their job. So from some of the qualitative responses, we have some insights. So there was increased job satisfaction For some, this was from successful completion of the PDMT. For some, it was from an enhanced preparedness to teach. And for some, it was linked to enhanced teacher self-efficacy. However, approximately 1/3 were not fully satisfied with their job. So for some reasons indicated from the responses were perceived lack of opportunity to teach advanced mathematics classes. So particularly out of field teaching, or these teachers are located at the lower secondary phase of schooling. Some school principals continue deployment of outfield teachers to teach mathematics. So even after they had completed the course, they may be assigned to teach different subject, and another teacher in the school would be assigned to teach mathematics, who may be a new teacher in the school. And then a lack of recognition for upskill mathematics teachers. So still possibly being seen not the same as someone who had come from the conventional route of teacher certification. In terms of effective commitment, there was again, a strong agreement with statements that suggested they had effective commitment, and disagreement with ones that suggested they didn't. So high levels of effective commitment, this was linked to job satisfaction and a strong satisfaction when teaching mathematics, and also a strong desire to remain in the mathematics teaching profession. From a normative commitment standpoint, these were some of the items and the proportion of responses, and there were moderate levels of normative commitment. So perhaps graduates feel a stronger obligation to their original subject. Participation in the PDMT was a means to an end for some, enhancing their job security. And as already referenced, maybe from the German context, this extrinsic motivation of teacher certification in such programs can often be a primary motivating factor. And so it's a means to an end in terms of enhancing job security. The continued deployment of out-of-field teachers to teach maths in schools, and again, the lack of opportunity to teach advanced mathematics classes, so recurring findings. In terms of self-efficacy with relation to classroom management, as one may anticipate, there was a great deal, high levels of self-efficacy in relation to classroom management, given the considerable teaching experience and the somewhat enhanced preparedness to teach mathematics in that regard. With regard to student engagement with mathematics teaching, we could see the results, the proportion are beginning to move towards the left on the Likert scale to moderate, and even in some cases a little. And with instructional strategies, we move towards moderate, or somewhat with a lot, but then there's some with a little. So then moderate levels of self-efficacy for innovative teaching strategies, and they indicated that a greater emphasis from the program was needed on mathematics teaching strategies, and a more patent connection between the content modules of the PDMT and the curriculum that they were teaching. In terms of their preparedness to teach the content, so the mathematics in Ireland is broken into strands, and JC refers to the lower secondary phase and LC refers to the upper secondary phase. And we can see by and large, they feel between somewhat prepared and very well prepared to teach topics in relation to those strands. However, there are some topics that they specify that we had almost a fifth of respondents saying that they felt not well prepared. And this is lower secondary geometrical proof, lower secondary transformation, upper secondary complex numbers, and again, following that geometry line, upper secondary transformational geometry and enlargements. So still feelings of, I suppose, not being confident to teach those topics even after the demands of the program. So lower levels of preparedness to teach some topics, and again, it points towards the need for enhanced connections between the content modules and the school curriculum, and enabling participants, perhaps more can be done to enable participants to recognize the connection between the university and school mathematics. And given the demands of how the program must be delivered in terms of the modules from different mathematics lectures, it can be difficult for coherence in this regard. So limitations, the overall response rate, of course, of 27%. The response rate for items relating to job satisfaction and commitment was between 73 and 78%. For self-efficacy, 56 to 64, and for preparedness to teach was higher at 85 to 88. But of course, preparedness to teach mathematics was self-reported, so which does provide detail on their perceptions. Yet it may not reflect in action, or they may not have experienced some of teaching these topics, and that may shed new light or change their perceptions in some regard. So recommendations from this: well, give careful attention to the rationale behind selecting and assigning teachers to classes. Of course, we're familiar with this. Prioritizing teachers' subject-specific qualifications wherever possible to maximize the number of students who are taught by fully qualified teachers. Yet the context, and to give a brief insight in regard to the Irish context, to obtain a contract of indefinite duration as a teacher in Ireland, so to be deemed permanent, you have to be teaching in the school for 2 years, with at least 15 or more hours. Now, to have what's termed full hours is 22. So 22 teaching hours in the week. And what the organizational and administrational demands mean that if a teacher has, for instance, 19 hours, instead of hiring a new teacher for just a 3-hour contract, that teacher might get 3 hours of mathematics, primarily at the lower secondary phase. So that I anecdotally at least, that is kind of how things materialize. Encourage teachers who are given outfield assignments to participate in PD aimed at developing subject matter and pedagogical content knowledge in their outfield subject, and to create a professional environment in which all teachers can learn with and from their colleagues, for example, through peer observation, collaborative planning, and assigning mentors to less experienced teachers. And so looking at a more coherent approach to upskilling or helping develop teachers, not just those outfield, but infield within the school environment. And again, with the demands of 22 hours teaching, it's seen there are other mandatory hours that teachers must attend after school. So there typically isn't enough space to allow such an environment to grow. And so there are difficulties with that in the Irish context that could be addressed. Thank you for listening. Of course, any questions, I'd be willing to try and answer as best I can.